Hi, we're in book 6, Bible story. And or where we are in the books, are part 2, story 7, Why Ezra Blushed. Ezra, Ezra. All the Jews who lived in Babylon or Meso-Persia didn't go back to Jerusalem when King Cyrus made his famous decree giving them permission to do so. Many stayed on even after the second decree given by Darius. Some were still there when King Artaxerxes made a decree in the year 457 BC. That's their estimate. Among these were a man named Ezra, a a ready scribe in the law of Moses. So he read the law of Moses, who can trace his family tree clear back to Aaron. Oh, so he was a Levite. Pulling, feeling the pull of his homeland and eager to see what had been done there since the first freed captives returned, Ezra sought the king's permission to lead a company of his friends to Jerusalem. Graciously, the king agreed, at the same time giving Ezra a very precious document. Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, it began. I made a decree that all they of the people of Israel and of his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will to go to Jerusalem, go with thee. This decree also permitted Ezra to take with him all the silver and the gold he could collect to help the work of God in Jerusalem, and give him the authority to appoint magistrates and judges with full power to punish offenders with imprisonment or death. Words kind of throw you, but this is 70 years ago. 70 years ago. No Jew had, and it's the double had, such powers since the Babylonians took over the country. Compared with the 50,000 who returned with Zerubbabel, Ezra's party was very small. Fewer than 2,000 men joining it, besides women and children, of course. Because they were carrying so much money, some in the company were afraid of being attacked by bandits on the way. But Ezra was ashamed to require of the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help. And then it's got the pause. Against the enemy in the way. Because he had spoken to the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon all of them for good that seek him. So they fasted and prayed and asked God to look after them. This he did, and after a journey of 4 months they arrived safely in Jerusalem with all their money quite safe. In that great day when they rode at last into the holy city, proudly and happy they handed over the gold and silver, and then it's got a picture right here. You should figure out what time I'm reading this. Here's the illustration. Okay. Proudly and happy they handed over the gold and silver to the priests in charge of the temple, but their joy did not last long. Ezra had not been in Jerusalem more than a few days when he heard something that made him blush for shame. The prince broke the sad news to him. The people of Israel and the priests and the Levites, they said, had not separated themselves from the people of the lands. And it's got to pause. For they had taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons. Ezra was astonished. This one, this was one of the things that God had told his people not to do. On no account were the young men to marry girls who did not believe in him. This had been Solomon's great sin, which had brought so much sorrow upon Israel. Now they were doing it again, only a few short years after God had set them free. That evening, said Ezra, if I fell upon my knees and spread out my hands unto the Lord my God, and said, O my God, I am ashamed and blush to lift up my face to thee, my God. For our iniquities are increased over our head, and our trespass is grown up into the heavens. He thanked God for leading the kings of Persia to show mercy to his people in setting them free and letting them rebuild the temple. And now, O our God, he cried, what shall we say after this? And that's got to pause. So it's King James. After all that is come upon us for our evil deeds and for our great trespass, seeing that thou, our God, hast punished us less than our iniquities deserve, and hast given us such deliverance as this, should we again break thy commandments and join in affinity, affinity, affinity with the people of those abominations, wouldst not thou be angry with us till thou hast consumed us, so that there should be no remnant nor escaping? In other words, are you going to destroy us and nobody be left? Pretty much, and condensed my way. Okay, so he pleaded for God's forgiveness for one more chance to do right. Then he called all Israel together and told them what was on his heart. Earnestly he begged them to undo the wrong they had done while yet there was time. That was a very sad meeting. Not only were many people worried because they didn't know what to do with the heathen wives they married, but everyone was cold, wet, and miserable because it was raining heavily at the time. At last, with one voice, the people said, as thou hast said, so we must do. Of course, it wasn't possible to break up so many marriages overnight, and there were the children to be thought of, too. So there were kids in this thing, too. It took days and weeks to straighten things out properly. A special court was set up to try all the cases, and 3 months passed before the task was finished. It had to be done, of course, or Israel would soon have slipped back into idolatry again. But what of a lot of sad goodbyes there must have been. And then it has a picture of him, of Ezra talking to the people. And this one family right here where my finger's at, she's so sad about it. And that was the end of part 2, story 7. So, like always, I'm going to break up these stories, and I'm going to break, and we'll be back in just a bit.